We might not. We'll fucking see. Econ, I'm out. Base. It's just a teeny bit. Just a teeny weeny bit, okay? Tariffs feature prominently in this year's election debate. Although the Biden administration has put some pretty steep tariff on Chinese goods, Trump wants to go much further. He wants 20% tariffs on every single thing the U.S. imports from any country. Trump seems to be a deep believer in the power of tariffs to solve almost any economic problem. But why does Trump believe this? Matt, I always forget how to pronounce his name, has been talking to some of Trump's policy people from his first administration, and he has the answers because a whole lot of people think imports subtract from GDP. I've spoken to half a dozen people who worked in the economic policy in the Trump administration, most of whom are somewhat reluctantly voted for him again, who all say Trump is a mercantilist who believes sincerely, but wrongly, that imports subtract from GDP. That's why he likes tariffs. This is a widely held but incorrect view of how trade works, and Trump is one of the people who holds it. The various efforts to backfill some other explanations of why he wants a 20% tax on Kenyan coffee and bananas from Central America are embarrassing. Stop humiliating yourselves. This is a very plausible explanation. Peter Navarro, one of Trump's trade advisors, certainly believes that imports subtract from GDP, but so do a whole lot of other people, including many people who don't even support Trump. So it's a good time for me to write a post explaining why this is a mistake. Despite what you may think you learned about in Econ 101, imports do not subtract from GDP. In fact, they're not counted in GDP at all. The decision to import more stuff can affect GDP indirectly, but that's not the same. And whether importing stuff causes GDP to go up or down depends on what the imports are used for and a bunch of other factors as well. In fact, there's many cases where blocking imports causes GDP to fall, including probably Trump's tariffs during his first term. In fact, this is not the first time I've written this post. I wrote an op-ed. You are my favorite streamer. Thanks for the resub, Carter.
You are my favorite streamer.
Oh my god, why is it playing twice again? I have the thing muted. It shouldn't be playing twice. What is playing it twice? The follow thing doesn't play twice. Yeah, thanks for following, buddy. Is this your first time here? The decision to import more stuff can affect... Oh, we read that. In fact, it's not the first time I read the post. I wrote an op-ed from Bloomberg explaining it back in 2016, and I wrote another post explaining it for this blog in 2022. Obviously, not everyone in this world reads this blog, so I can't exactly expect these posts to have changed popular understanding. Nevertheless, the return of Trump and his tariffs mean it's a good time to explain it once again, and instead of simply reposting my previous post word for word, I want to try to hone my explanatory skills. Okay, so let's explain why the popular pseudo-econ factoid is wrong. Imports don't subtract from GDP. Understanding why imports don't subtract from GDP. Often there are cases where economists understand some principle of the economy, for example, comparative advantage or opportunity cost, that normal folks find it difficult to wrap their minds around. The relationship of imports to GDP is not one of these cases. Instead, it's a case where economists decide to teach a concept in a confusing way, resulting in widespread popular misunderstanding. Here's how your Econ 101 textbook probably taught you to calculate GDP. GDP equals consumption plus investment plus government purchases plus net exports. And since net exports are just exports minus imports, this means GDP equals consumption plus investment plus government purchase plus exports minus imports. Look, right there, it says minus imports. Right there in the dang formula, plain as day. You'd have to be a total idiot not to understand that formula, right? And indeed, many people responded to Matt, I think it's Iglesias, tweet by calling him an idiot. But Matt is not an idiot, and neither am I. And neither I like to think am I. Let's talk about what GDP is. GDP is the total value of everything produced in a country. GDP equals all the stuff we produce. Imports aren't produced in a country, so they just don't count in the formula above, and they aren't alone. There are plenty of other things in the universe that don't get counted in GDP simply because they have nothing to do with domestic economic production. The number of asteroid impacts in Andromeda's galaxy is probably important to someone, but it doesn't count in US GDP. The population of beluga sturgeon in Kazakhstan is probably important to someone, but it doesn't count in US GDP. Imports don't count in US GDP because, like asteroid impacts in the Andromeda galaxy and the population of beluga sturgeon in Kazakhstan, they don't involve domestic production in the domestic economic production in the United States. In fact, we can divide up GDP a different way from the Econ 101 breakdown. Let's divide it up according to these categories of what people might ultimately use people who might ultimately use the stuff we produce in the United States. GDP equals capital goods we produce for companies plus consumer goods we produce for consumers plus stuff we produce for the government plus stuff we produce for foreigners. Again, imports are nowhere to be seen, but exports are in here. Exports are just all the stuff we produce for foreigners, so the formula is capital goods we produce for companies plus capital goods we produce for consumers plus stuff we produce for the government plus exports. This is a perfectly good formula for GDP, but here's what economists do. They add imports into the first three categories and then subtract them at the end. GDP equals capital goods for companies plus capital goods we import for companies, consumer goods we produce for consumers plus consumer goods we import for consumers, stuff we produce for the government plus stuff we import for the government, exports minus capital goods we import for companies, capital goods we import minus capital goods we import for consumers, minus stuff we import for the government. This type of equation adds in three different types of imports and then subtracts them all at the end. It's mathematically equivalent to the formula above it, because if you add imports and then subtract them out again, you've just added zero, and adding zero does nothing. Imports still don't count in GDP in this equation. Okay, now let's realize what the term in the equations mean. Okay, I guess I should probably... This is the wrong free trade thing. Oh wait, I'm so sorry. How could you guys ever be paying attention? There you go. There's your Subway servers. Okay. Okay, a big reason Trump and many people who support him support tariffs. I support his tariffs. It's because they believe imports subtract from GDP. But this is a misunderstanding of how GDP is calculated based on the confusing way it's taught. Imports are not actually counted in GDP at all. GDP is commonly taught as being calculated with this formula. Net exports is just exports minus imports, so it can be rewritten Here's where the confusion is. Right there. It states it subtracts imports. But this is actually just a way of how's it, like, retroactively subtracting imports that have been invisibly added to the other parts of the formula. Retroactively subtracting the imports that are calculated, or that are included in the other parts of the formula. Here's what economists do. They add imports to the first year economy and subtract them at the end. Economists are. Did I not copy it? Into the first three components of the formula and subtracting them all at the end, like as follows. Oh no.
I think that there's a lot of hesitancy among
we're gonna watch this at some point.
Support Republicans because there is a very sophisticated media apparatus which goes to convince everybody that racism is like very prevalent on the Republican side. Therefore, if we vote for racism, we're going to have that come back to bite us. But I mean, I don't see the fruits of that anywhere. I've never seen anything like a policy, for example, which can demonstrate the viability of that. So.
Just remember, audience guy, whatever you sound like, if you're a black person, answer the question, right? He wants to see less of your kind of people in this country when John Doyle is answering this question. If somebody shows the voter looking like you, he doesn't want people that look like you to come to this country. Just as a heads up.
That's not true because when I referenced the immigration policy, black Americans were already here. I'm talking about Indians and Chinese and all these other people. So
I have to move us to the.
By the way, I love nobody. I'm literally a black person expert, which my audience will know. Nobody has more love
Did he say he's a black person expert? What?
and respect for reference the immigration policy. Black Americans were already here. I'm talking about Indians and Chinese and all these other people.
I have to move us to the.
By the way, I love nobody. I'm literally a black person expert, which my audience will know. Nobody has more love and respect for Black America than myself.
Just to keep this in the Q&A.
Knowing all the slurs doesn't make you a black person expert.
We're all right. We're.
Such a weird debate to have a crowd and have one on a podium, want to call in. Yeah, it's weird, but.
Answer the question, right?
Oh, he's probably traveling for something. I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about Indians and Chinese. Okay, I don't really need the way he breaks down this equation. I just need the. Not that race, just the others, yeah. This type of equation adds in 3 different types of imports. Did you watch the live stream of the John Doyle Destiny debate? No. Because I got to farm it for reaction content, brother. Obviously. type equation as in 3 different types of imports, subtraction, multi-end, and mathematical equivalent, because blah, 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 adding zero. I read that. Okay, now let's realize what these terms in the equation mean. Capital goods we produce for companies plus capital goods we import for companies, just investment. Consumer goods we produce for consumers plus consumer goods we import for consumers is just consumption. Stuff we produce for the government. Stuff we produce plus stuff we import for the government. It's just government purchases. Export stuff we import for companies minus stuff we import for consumers minus stuff we import for government. It's just